Hey everybody, this is Brett. And sometimes while I'm doing dishes, I start thinking about all the things that I'd like to extend out to you, and I get a conglomeracy of a bunch of things, and I'm like, I just can't hold back anymore. So here I am. Here I am. And this is the time of the year when typically in my past I've not been real excited about it. And hey, Pixel. And it's because, we have all of this built up energy from the holidays come, and then it goes. And then here we all sit all broken hearted, and the energy is dead. And for me, I really don't like the extremes, you know that. And so the big hype of the holidays and then the new year all hitting, and then everything just going. And and it doesn't really start until about right now, because the energy of everybody, it gets so crazy that it takes some time for it to cool down. But usually by about the 8th, 10th, 12th, that's when it hits. Like it just, the bottom drops out of the whole freaking thing. And hello, Zerial and Kais and Ryan. You gotta fix my screen back to 100%. That's it. Ooh, maybe I'll bump it up to 110. Ooh, now I can read it better. My eyes aren't too good. So yeah, a couple of years ago it started to come to me. I know it's a real simple thing, but it started to come to me just naturally that it's a lot more of a spiritual and quiet time of the year. And I basically was just able to accept that because I had more of an indoor job instead of an outdoor job. When you work outdoors year round, it's tough in the wintertime, obviously. And you just don't accept the reasons for why it's difficult in the winter outside. And so you don't think about it and you don't accept it. And that just goes to show you that people are able to accept things that they can accept. And and so that's why you have to be kind of compassionate with people, because everyone is in a different boat. And so that's one of the things that I want to talk about, and that is that nowadays, this time of the year, in the evening time, I'll go and I'll definitely do stretching. Now, it's not like I don't do stretching in the evening time in the summers, but I'll spend like more quiet time breathing and more time sleeping. And hi, Connor. Hi, James. And I am fine. And quiet things, self massage and reflecting and quiet thinking and stuff like that. And it can be really enjoyable, actually. And here's the problem, the reason why most people don't gravitate towards it too much. And it's because, like I told you, we live in this society that's so pro craziness. So, like the crazy movies, the crazy things that people get into. I mean, people love it when there's a war. People like to go to watch movies about war. Why wouldn't they be interested in seeing a real war? So, I mean, they're really into spending a lot of money here on war materials. And there are plenty of places in the world and peoples around the world that are totally geared towards and wanting to instigate problems. And so the U.S. has decided to become the sheriff, the police of the world. So if you're an American, you should know that that's what you are. I mean, think about Think about it as like your part, and your taxes are all part of being the police of the world. And so when you have kind of a rogue country that's run by like Iran, I'm getting to that right now because that's one of the things that I want to talk about. You have a very difficult area of the world to survive in. And so whenever you've got a very harsh climate and not a lot of resources other than oil, then you have a people that spend a whole lot of their time praying. I mean, that's what you would do. And they've not really, they're not very civilized. A lot of them are that way, but some are not. But a lot higher percentage of people in the Middle East are not very progressed. It's pretty obvious. And it's been that way, and it will be that way for God knows how much longer. I mean, look at all the wars and hell that's happened just in my lifetime in the Middle East. It's a continual hot spot. And God knows different reasons, like the religions there are part of it. And like I said, wherever it's really green and there's a lot of resources, think of the exact opposite. Go to a beautiful island where there's lots of fish to eat, lots of fruit, and beautiful sunshine, and everything's really, really green. And you will find that people are like Okinawa, for instance, Okinawa, Japan, where people live longer than anywhere else in the world. I watched a documentary, something called, I think it was called like the happiest people in the world. So you find a beautiful island where everything is just like easy and relaxed, and you'll find happy people sitting around eating fruit and playing games and eating good foods, etc., fish, etc., and not a lot of troubles, not a lot of troubles. But then the United States, in regards to Iran, a long time ago, the United States decided that they wanted to start controlling the Middle East because probably the oil, certainly, because the oil makes things run. I mean, you didn't see the United States going to some place in Central Africa to try and control it there. You saw them going to the Middle East to try and, install this Shah a long time ago, and then the people there are obviously going to get tired of being ruled and controlled by somebody outside of their country. That's how it always is. So many different places that the Brits have been kicked out of, and that's how it was. The British went all over the world and dominated and took over all these different places, and then eventually people got power and decided to kick them out. But yeah, eventually that's what will happen with the U.S., and the U.S. will have to get real and get their forces out of a lot of different places in the world. And hopefully by then, those places will be somewhat a lot more civilized and able to rule themselves and control their own destinies and have free elections and all of that. Hi, Marina. Hi, Nomad. Wake up, we are self-sufficient with oil, get educated. Bye, Nomad. So, yeah, I understand that the United States is supposedly producing enough oil for its own use now and for more. But regardless, the United States has always wanted to control everything around the world because the United States is really good at inventing and building and selling the most technical things in the world. And so if you're really good at doing whatever, you want to be in control of whatever. And so the ultimate capitalist society in the world is the United States. And so the United States wants everyone in the world to be capitalistic and have free trade. And there needs to be, in order for that to happen, there needs to be a continual flow of oil so that everyone can continue to produce. Unfortunately, the problem is that burning more and more fuel into the air causes not everything, but causes a whole lot of health issues. And it's amazing that people are not, I mean, I was watching an episode the other night, just for a few minutes, just for the kicks of it, Dragnet. Do you guys remember that? So Dragnet was an old, and you can watch all the episodes on YouTube. It's an old police show. It goes, dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. And so it always starts out something to the degree of, this is the city. I'm Joe Gannon, and this is Friday. And then it takes a look over the city of Los Angeles, and you can hardly see the city of Los Angeles. And we're talking about back in the 60s. And so there's a lot more cars on the road nowadays, but of course the cars have a lot better emissions, and the fuel is cleaner, and but still, there's a whole hell of a lot of smog in LA anyway. And it's coming around. Things are coming around, but not, because, like, as an example of how they've gone backwards, when I was a kid in 1973, we bought a 1973 Datsun station wagon, a 610 wagon. Look that up. And that car got 40 miles to the gallon. It wasn't too heavy. It got, as obviously, incredibly great gas mileage. But then, things come around, innovations come around, and people want more safety features, and people want more room, and the economy gets better, and possibly the gas gets cheaper. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. But for whatever reason, people don't retain the respect that they had once gotten, like during the gas crisis in the 70s. See, for those of you that don't know, we had a big gas crisis in the mid-70s. And the lines were stretching around the block. And we had to wait and wait in our cars to get gas. And it wasn't just one of these shorty things that happened like in the last few years because of some kind of a refinery problem or some kind of a tsunami, not tsunami, but a hurricane. So it wasn't just like a week-long thing. It happened for a long time. It happened for months and months. I can't remember if it was more than a year. But it was real trouble, and then people started to think in terms of having really economical cars. Oh, thank you, Shell. Shell, you're so sweet. So you guys remember how, like, the cars got smaller, sort of, for a while? But not for too long, because then people wanted their great big-ass cars. And for the last several years, you look on the road. Thank you, Shell. I love you, too. So if you look on the road, you'll see just a lot. There's a whole lot of big-ass cars out there that don't get very good gas mileage. And some of you might own those, and you might be offended at me. But I'm just going to rattle off. I mean, there might be some Iranians out there that are pissed off at me now, or somebody from Syria or whatever. I'm not saying that everyone is unconscious in regards to gas, or everyone in Iran or Syria, etc., is unconscious, or that all Mexicans are thieves or whatever, because that's not the truth. There are stereotypes, and some of them have some degree of validity. I'm just saying that those people out there, for whatever thing that that they don't have their act together with, all of the you-know-what is hitting the fan continually. it seems to be, tell me if you guys don't agree with this. Tell me if you don't agree that the poo has not been hitting the fan more and more and more in a whole lot of different ways all around the world, and that it's creating a massive amount of pressure. A whole hell of a lot of pressure on a whole lot of different people to get their acts together. Look at the Catholic Church and all of that sex scandal abuse. There's just one example. Look at all the sanctions on various countries that the U.S. is putting on North Korea and Iran and various other countries. Look at the pressure that's being put on China for free rights by the brave people of Hong Kong. Look at the various animal rights troubles that people are getting pressure on, like anything to do with whales or dolphins. Or in Canada, there's a bunch of bastards that kill baby seals, like day-old baby seals. There's a bunch of these mother effers that go out and kill for the pelt, because it's really soft, baby seals. And for me, I'm all on board with pretty much anything that's moving towards the future. You know, I'm not saying that I'm perfect, because I'm far from perfect. But I think that, in all honesty, and I don't care if it sounds conceited, but you guys know what my values are, and I think that I'm a hell of a lot more in line with righteousness and goodness and what's really, really right than most people are out there, especially the so-called the religious people. Like, I could give you so many different examples of things that those guys, a lot, depending on the religion, some of them are a lot more advanced than others. Whenever you see somebody that's like sitting peacefully, like there are some religions in Asia where they refuse to hurt even a bug. They're really working hard. Now, bear in mind that some people that are really extreme in some regard are that way because they are actually the opposite, and they're trying to get that way. As an example, psychiatrists. The psychiatrists, this is not the time for being artful and clever. So psychiatrists are oftentimes very nutty. Like, they're not all there. And so those of you that you're wondering, maybe you've had some mental difficulties and you've gone to a psychiatrist or a counselor or somebody in the mental health field, and you've kind of been thinking in the back of your head that, man, these people have got to have real serenity of their minds. They've got to be really there, because they sound like it. But let me tell you, people can put on a big-time front, and you have to be able to see through their, they call in astrology, their rising sign. Okay, so your rising sign in astrology is what you're projecting to the world. And largely, when I go on these videos, it's my rising sign, my Leo rising, that I'm projecting to the world. And how I like my new place. How you like your new place? I watch Gabriel Traveler on YouTube, and whenever he's talking to a foreigner, he talks in his, what I call, his robot voice. You got eat? You got food for me? It's really funny, and it's always like the same kind of an accent. No, oh no, thank you. Like, they're always trying to sell him stuff on the street, you know. Oh no, I need move on. Tell me where bus is. So whenever you see somebody typing like that, you know that They're from a different country. Anyways, I don't even remember what I was talking about. I can tell you guys that, yes, yes. Do I look like I'm from India? I like people from India. I like people from India a lot. I'll tell you that people from India are very advanced beings. Now, people from India have been influenced for quite a while now by the Brits. But I don't believe that's entirely the reason why people from India are progressive and very spiritually, generally very spiritually advanced. In fact, I'll tell you that I think that although a lot of the cultural stuff of Hinduism is kind of funky looking with the mass, I enjoy the mass and I enjoy the tapestries and a lot of the things, and you see them all over my house. And I've been to some Hindu-ish gatherings. When I lived in Tucson, Arizona, I would go to the Sunday, or was it Saturday morning? And I can't remember what they called it. Maybe y'all know. But they have like a gathering where you go, and it was like cheap, really super cheap or free, and it was put on by like the monks or the people there, and it was like really good food, and you would go there, and then they had like a singing gathering afterwards that I really enjoyed. And so I'll tell you that I really enjoy the Indian culture and their spirituality a lot, whereas for the most part, the Christians, not so much. I mean, I'm not saying that when I was a kid, I didn't enjoy sometimes like the singing aspects of going to the Mormon church and stuff like that. But in any case, I would say that one of the last ones that I would go to probably is Muslim, for sure. Muslim, Catholics. And I'm just telling you what I'm thinking and feeling. Like any of the ones that are, I don't know. If they're screaming death to America, think about that. What kind of a religion, what kind of a country and its religion is somebody that would do that? Scream death to anybody else. I mean, that is so primitive, y'all. So primitive. That's like freaking Neanderthals, you know? And I'm not saying that everybody in the Middle Eastern countries are like that, because they're not. For instance, Gabriel Traveler, the one that I was telling you about, was in Erbil, which is northern Iraq, not too long ago, and that's where the Kurds are, the North Iraq Kurds, and they seem very cool. And that's kind of how it's been. Like, you guys remember back in the Iraq War, that that Saddam Hussein was very brutal against the Kurds. Kurds seem like the nicest people around there, and so Gabe went to Erbil, which is, you cannot go there now with everything that's going down in Iraq now. But he went there about a month ago, and like I said, the people were nice to him. They were very cool. The women did not have to stay covered up in the Kurdish territories, and it's such a shame. It is such a shame that the U.S. turned its back on the Kurds of North Syria. It is such a bad thing, and Donald Trump he needs to lose big time. He really, really needs to lose. Now, as for the killing of this general guy, I'm on board with it. Same as I was on board with killing what's his name? And that, sorry, I don't always think of names really good. You know what I mean? But when President Obama had the SEALs go in and kill somebody, write it down there for me, in Afghanistan, or was it or was it Pakistan? It was somewhere around. No, it was in Pakistan. That was fine with me too. You know, anyone that's like a planner, a terrorist type planner, whether you want to call them a general or a whatever you want to call them, I'm all on board with them taking them out. So, but I'm not a Trump supporter. You guys know that. So, anyways, let's check out some of the comments here. Dirtbag. What does that mean? The most progressive nation near SA. Bin Laden, yeah. So, let me go through this here. Okay. Smell you later, sad cracker. Anyways, so let's see what else I want to talk about. Okay, well, the other obvious thing that's really horrible in the news right now is the whole fires in Australia, and that's tough. You know, Australia is, from what I know, it's pretty much an English colony. It's a country that was an English colony, and so you have English people there, and it takes a long time to change the ways of people. And it really takes a lot of hell sometimes, and this is a perfect example of that. The people in California and the people of Australia are learning that if you don't build your houses and your structures out of indigenous materials, then they're probably going to have a major problem. It's not just building out of indigenous materials, though. There are so many different aspects of building that human beings know about and have known about for a whole long time, a long time. But unfortunately, they're not incorporating those natural building habits, and not habits, but tendencies, whatever you want to call that, into their buildings. Why? Because what they are incorporating into building is speed and being able to make as much money as possible. This is the real estate business. Okay, and when you got a contractor in California that wants to make money, the way he does that is he builds a housing tract. We all know this. Bam, 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 bam. You've got 2, 3, 4 different designs, maybe a half different designs. They've been created by an architect. They go in with heavy equipment like they've been doing in the back of this cabin for the last week now. I'll have to show you that. For the last week, they've had heavy equipment in the back of the cabin here, digging out the foundation for the owner's new house, creating a new road. They have completely, pretty much destroyed the hillside behind the cabin here. And that's what they do. It's not healthy. It's not logical. It's hugely destructive when you take a giant backhoe and a big grader and just, for the most part, they took out 3/4 or more of the trees back there to create the road going up the hill. And so anyways, the building practices that modern man has created don't always work very well. And they're not always very sustainable, especially in the hillsides. The farther you get away from, the more brush you got, and the farther you get away from water sources where you can control the brush, the harder of a time that you're going to have controlling a fire. And those fires can be started by God knows how many different ways, including humans and terrorists. And so it's going to just get worse and worse because you don't see people stopping doing what they're doing. The only way, I'm afraid to tell y'all, that you're going to see all of this stop is when the population goes from where it's at, which is freaking crazy, way, 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 way down. And humans, like, because you see, in Australia, you don't think that they're going to actually start building houses out of materials that won't burn, which is the natural way, which is the way the Aborigines probably certainly did, the way Southwestern Americans did, American Indians did. You don't think that they're going to actually start building adobe houses in Australia, do you? Because the women there will look at those, and men too, and they'll be like, "Oh, that is just sightly. That's unsightly. That's unsightly. That won't be worth anything. We're not going to build a house that looks like that." Do I do a good Aussie? We're not going to build a house that looks like that. It wouldn't be worth anything. That may sound more British, huh? It wouldn't be worth anything. It's just an adobe house. It's just a sandbag house. So what's going to be more important? This is about with everything. The truth. What's more important? Money and the real estate industry, or a house that won't burn? Are they going to get their priorities straight? And how long will it take? The older I get, the more I start to understand that this world has so far to go. And when I look at things with my mind, and my mind that thinks, see, you have to understand where my mind is. My mind is in a space of thinking about each person having their basic necessities, the basic things that they need. And if each person can have all of those things, then, and not focus on wanting more and more and more and more and extravagancies. If each person can get their basic necessities, here there are a whole lot of people that they have their basic necessities and they're like, I've got everything that I need. Now what am I going to do? And what do they do? Imagine two different people. Here's one person that says, I've got everything that I need. Now what do I do? And then you've got another person that says, I've got everything that I need. Now what do I do? The first person decides that what they need is to start saving up money to get a new Hummer or a jet or something extravagant, a second house or something like that. And then the second person says, well, man, what I have always wanted to do was go down to Guatemala and help Child Aid with some kind of a project of building a school, okay? These are the shitheads. These people are the shitheads, so that you know. And these are the good people. Whether they be Republicans or Democrats or whatever they may be. They might be Christians. They might be Hindus. They might be whatever. Catholics even. These are the good people that know what to do with their money and their time. And these are the shitheads that suck. That's how it is. And we don't know why, necessarily, these people have an inherent desire to be good and do something righteous and cool for a living and for their time, with their time after they've gotten their basic necessities and they're all, man, I've got everything I need. And why these people, they just can't get enough. They can't buy enough. They can't spend their time screwing around, sitting at the bar enough. They just can't get enough of whatever, and they don't understand what's really valuable. They don't get it. Let's see if I got any more views or more comments. Everyone buys, and lives beyond their means. Shelter, clean air, food. That's right. James's pillows are the best. My husband and I both have one. Yes, they do. Maria Sharapova moved now to Australia. She gave a donation to Yeah, that's good. Right now, I was thinking today, man, I wish I could give a donation, but I really can't. So I'm sending good thoughts. I give as much as I can to charities. Anyway, so the other thing I want to talk to you about is like, besides, I'll tell you, before I tell you about that, The other day, I had someone stay in the trailer, and she was vegan. And she may actually watch this video. I don't know. But I didn't know she was vegan. When I saw her, I was like, oh my God, this girl is so thin. Her face was like this. I can't even do it. Her face was so thin. And then a few minutes later, she told me that, oh, I'm a vegan. And I was like, oh, yeah, I know the deal. And so the next day, she checked out, and I went to empty the garbage. And guess what was in the garbage? Fake meat package. A fake meat package. And guess what the first ingredient was? Vital wheat gluten. Now, why would they call it vital? It blows my mind what people will do to sell their shit. Vital wheat gluten. Not soy. It wasn't soy. It was wheat gluten. Vital. And so, this is a perfect example of being uneducated, not understanding. She was young, and I guess she just didn't know. And some people think that it's okay and hunky-dory it's what they want to do is quit eating meat for the ethical reasons and I understand that. I understand that. Nobody wants to kill animals to eat them. Well, that's not true. A lot of us don't want to eat animal foods because we know what's behind it. Even me, with growing my own chickens, the last thing I really wanted to do was kill one of my own chickens. But I know that my dog needs it. And after I ate it, I was like, man, I really need it. And hopefully I can get to the point of where I don't. But things take time. And you don't want to do things that are like uneducated like that. Okay, like I'm going to quit eating meat, but I'm going to start eating fake meat. That's what she's doing. And for those of you that want to reduce eating meat, you find adequate natural substitutes like beans. You may be able to eat soybeans. You may not be able to eat soybeans. You could just eat fish. Instead of eating any chicken or beef, you could just eat fish. You could just eat eggs if you want. You'll get all your amino acids in eggs. And that's a definite thing that you can do. The thing with eggs is that they don't have a lot of sodium in them like meat. Meat has, the bigger the meat, that it seems, the more sodium it has in it. And that slows down your detox. And the heavier the fat it is, the more it slows down your detox. So the more you lean out the meat, and the smaller the animal gets, like imagine somebody that's a heavy red meat eater going from that to somebody that, okay, you can't eat any of that. You can't eat any chicken anymore. No fish. All you can eat is escargot. Snails. All you can eat is snails. Now think about how lean snails are. And like just about anybody could kill snails. When I lived in San Diego, when it rained in the rainy season, oh my God, you could go out and get as many snails as you wanted to off the sidewalk. Crap loads of snails all over the place. So if you live in Southern California and you want to work towards being vegan, you can go collect your own meat out on the side. And there, God knows how much sidewalks there are. There's plenty of sidewalks. You can just go for a walk and take a little bag with you and collect as much snails as you can handle. Now, if you're like what I was talking about, some of those religions, like maybe the Baha'is or something, some of those religions that have vowed never to kill even an ant, then you may not be able to crack open the shell of a snail and eat it. So I wouldn't know what to tell you. Maybe just eating eggs. It's not like plants aren't alive either. That's right. That's true. See, that's one of the typical, man. That's like one of the typical dumbest excuses that people will say. Well, like, I can't stand to eat that broccoli or that. You're going to kill that broccoli. You're going to kill that parsley. I can't believe you're going to pull that dandelion up. That's horrific. That's some of the dumbest shit I've ever heard. So, anyways, it was wrong substitutes. There's not even protein in wheat gluten. Yes, there's a lot of protein, I think, in wheat gluten. Not only that, it's like sticky. People like to eat sticky foods. So, anyways, the what was it? That and okay. So another thing, somebody mentioned on this, they were talking about how some people have a genetic propensity to have various certain cancers or diseases, etc. And they can show that by showing, like, okay, you've got this genetic makeup, and you have a 70% chance of getting breast cancer. And you remember Jolie, what's her name? Martine, what's her first name? Jolie, that had her breasts removed. Okay, so that's another thing I don't buy into. Okay, so there may definitely be some legitimacy to these tests that show tendencies for a person that has a particular makeup. But, like, does that mean that you just go ahead and lop off your breasts? I mean, that's not what it would mean to me. What would it mean to me? You guys should know that it would mean that I would need to change the way I do business, like to live as healthfully as possible, so that my immune system were functioning as optimally as possible. And so that my emotions were as steady, and I dealt with my issues as much as possible, that I was eating as clean of food as possible and breathing as clean of air and drinking as clean of water as I could get. And I had a degree of social interaction. This is like, you guys should know that this is important to me to do this kind of social interaction. Yeah, there's a whole lot of people that aren't smart, Marina. and maybe she had some kind of a reasoning behind it. What was her name? The girl that was going with Brad Pitt. Her last name is Jolie. Somebody write it down there. So, anyways, is it smart to just decide to lop off a body part? Because that's what our world is all about. It's speed. And if you don't have time to do all of those things, if you don't have an inclination, yeah, Angelina. So if you don't have an inclination to make the effort to reverse the genetic tendencies, the poor qualities of your ancestors by doing things the right way, which is what I just mentioned, all of the things that make you feel good. Like if you have a pain in your body, then if you massage it first and then you stretch it second, and you do that regularly, you'll get rid of that pain. If you have a pain within you that's emotional and you want to get rid of that, well, the first thing you have to do is you have to bring it out. Like breath work is a physical thing that you can do to bring out your emotional pain. And then you cry. And all of these troubles, and everybody knows, a lot of these troubles that happen to us, somebody dies in our life, or something really bad happens, whatever, they're all learning experiences, and they're all an avenue for us to be able to release our anxiety, our pain, etc., etc. And so somebody's death is like a joy. It's like a beautiful thing for you. It's just like a fire that turns into incredibly great soil and then grows wonderful plants later. Like, remember when Yellowstone burned down a long time ago and they were having a hard time controlling that fire? And then like 10 years later, they came back and showed how all of these new trees were growing out of the soil. All of that, all of that ash creates a new soil. It helps to neutralize the acid and alkaline in the soil, if I remember correctly. Dan, my gardener friend, might correct me on that. But yeah, that's it's like ash is like lime. Okay, it serves as the same purpose as lime when you add it to your garden soil. It neutralizes, it brings the acid and alkalinity to the center, to a neutral place, if I remember correctly. So yeah, speaking of gardens, man, I was supposed to have purchased an indoor um, growing light so that I could get going with starters this year. And one of my Facebook friends, even sent me a bunch of seeds. And a couple of years ago, somebody sent me a bunch of seeds. I still have all of these seeds, right? And so I've just been kind of thinking about it in the back of my head. But But I did get a couple of replies from the video that I made a few days ago in regards to getting a roommate, a community member, a helper, whatever you want to call these people that are going to come and live with me. And clean the gut. I don't remember what that pertains to. Ah. So yeah, I got a couple of replies to that, and we talked on Skype, and both of them sound like they might be a possibility. The thing is, though, that people tend to change their mind about things. These are very young guys. One is 22, one is 23. Both are recent college grads. And when you're in that position, you're kind of up in the air. You're wondering where you're going and what you're doing. I'm still in that position, and I'm 54. But you're really in that position when you're that age. And so I'm not expecting anything. I'm rolling with the flow. I'm allowing things to happen. Because think about it. Think about the world out there right now. And imagine being in a room with somebody. Imagine being in a room with whatever room Donald Trump is in right now and listening in on the conversation. Imagine being in the room that the Ayatollah in Iran is in and listening to their conversation and being able to decipher what they're saying. Imagine all of the rooms out there of all the people. They're all pulling this string and moving that element and changing this and that. And so you've got all of these things happening out there, and some of those things are going to directly affect you. You don't know what that's going to be. You have no idea. And here you sit, all brokenhearted, and you don't have any control over any of that. So now tell me, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You can breathe. You can sit peacefully. These are advanced things that a person can do. They can get out of this world within themselves. So you can escape. And that's what people will oftentimes do. It's probably what Alzheimer's people are doing subconsciously. They're escaping from this world. When I went back and saw my Aunt Elaine with bad Alzheimer's, she was acting like a little child again. We're talking about a 70-year-old plus woman that's acting kind of like a child, you know? And I think that when the body gets to a point of where it's degrading so much, maybe the subconscious mind throws itself into a state of total unseriousness. Is that a word? Unseriousness? Childlikeness and escape. Escape. So I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing, because I think that a lot of people will, to one degree or another, go into a state of escape in their mind. And they'll call it a disease. They'll call it mental illness, because that person isn't acting normally. But I'll tell you what, when people are not fully functional, it's an act of self-preservation. It's an act of escape, for sure. And it's also an act that's difficult for all the people that are around them, because then they have to be taken care of. And a lot of people are not up to it. And certainly God bless all of those people that work in care centers that are taking care of people. There are people out there that's what they're geared towards to be able to do. And if you're working in a care center and you're not geared for that and you're not up for that, then you shouldn't be there. And those people that are, bless those people, because that's a valuable job in this world. But unfortunately, a whole lot of the people out there that have gotten into trouble physically, and now their minds have gotten into trouble mentally, those people got into their situations on their own. Okay, so this is the more of the conservative way to look at it. Okay, there's the compassionate way to look at it, and then there's the conservative way to look at it, which says, hey, screw you. You got yourself into this mess, and you didn't make the changes that you needed to make. Hey, psycho ghost trackers. So you didn't make the changes that you needed to make, and now guess what? We have to deal with your illnesses. And man, I think this is where I'm really hitting on all cylinders tonight in regards to being able to go from one subject right to the other. And the next subject is pot. Okay, so this is where pot comes in, I think, because, I'm not a pot smoker, but I have smoked pot. When I was young, I smoked a degree of pot, not a lot, but I did sell pot for a while. Not for very long, but for a little while. And in any case, pot just kind of zones you out. For me, anyways. Some people say that it lifts them up and they're able to concentrate more. That's not what I experienced. I experienced the exact opposite. And for me, I don't know how people can really even get through their day being stoned all day. But there are people out there that spend their days stoned. And so, excuse me. So, I think that when people get to a certain point of where they're in so much pain and or they just need to escape, that pot's a very good alternative for a lot of people, especially compared to that for which your doctor has for you, something that your doctor has for you that's made in a lab. And thank you, psycho ghost trackers. I will tell you, though, that when I typically see, and I have a lot of experience with this, when I typically see somebody that's named something like that, psycho something, they often get blocked soon thereafter. Not because I instantly assume. See, it's not good to just instantly assume something and then take action. But it is good to take note of things in the back of your head like that somebody's calling themselves a psycho something. And if that's the case, it's very likely, it's very possible from my experience, many, many, many times, that those people will probably get blocked for some reason in the future because they'll say something ignorant or you know what I mean. Anyways, I wonder if THC would help dementia. I don't know. I don't know. I've seen videos where people were in a lot of pain, and they pretty much now spend their days stoned, and that helps them tremendously. And one of them that I saw on YouTube was a good Mormon, and he used to be a sheriff. He used to, or it was just a policeman. One of the two. He was in law enforcement, and then he got into some accidents. And I believe he had back pain or neck pain or something. And he got on OxyContin and got addicted to it. And then he had to get off of it. And then his kid told him about pot. And he wouldn't believe him. But eventually he tried it, and now he's sold on it, and he's one of the biggest promoters of marijuana in Arizona. And believe it or not, check it out. He actually lived in Safford, Arizona, which is that place where I told you about the 2 spas that I was the first male massage therapist to work at that spa. Remember that? And check this out. YouTube would not monetize that video. And the reason YouTube would not monetize that, I figured it out, is because in the title I had the name of that spa, and anything that with a specific name of somebody or some place, etc., that's in a title of a video will be noticed by the computer, and then they'll review it and probably not allow any monetization. So you can talk about people, etc., etc. You can show their faces in certain states, etc. But as soon as you're making money from that video, then it's a different story and you can be sued. Okay? So guess what I did? I took that video down. I just did that just to play it safe. You gotta play it safe sometimes in this world. It's cool to have a good opinion, a strong opinion about things, but at the same time, you got to know where to draw the line. So now what do you want to talk about? Like I'm allowing you guys to pick the subjects. You can pick the subject now. Psycho, you tell me what to talk about. Psychos trackers. I'll talk about it. Bigfoot. I just travel all over to create the creepiest, craziest places. That's why I came up with that first name. Do you have a lot of subs? You got to come up with the next subject, Psycho. Ugh. So I'll tell you what. Right now I'm feeling it in my middle back, and the longer I sit here on a chair in the regular sitting position, the more my back goes like that. See, when you sit in a cross-legged position or half lotus, isn't it interesting how, there, I'm sitting half lotus. Isn't it interesting how your lower back arches and you sit up straight? It's like amazing, isn't it? Try it for yourself. When you sit in a regular chair with your feet on the floor, you slump. When you sit cross-legged or with your heels under your butt, like you do on the floor, then it's amazing how much you sit up straight. This is an incredible thing for all of you to take note of. Take note. Take note. When you sit in a chair with your feet on the floor, you slump. When you sit cross-legged or with your heels under your butt, where you're stretching your legs, it makes your low back arch back, and you sit up straight. It's the configuration of the way your body is, because your leg muscles directly affect, and they're all connected to your glutes and your back and your obliques. That you sit affect the way your posture is. And all of these people that have back problems in the US, like for instance, bulging discs is a perfect example. It's an absolute perfect example of a person that probably sits in a regular sitting position on a chair with their feet on the floor for hours and hours and hours a day. And pretty soon, they're all slumped over. Not only does it cause lower lumbar problems, but it also causes slumping in the upper back, and then they get that dowager's hump, and they also get neck problems. And one of the things, I'll tell you, one of the things that I'm vowing to do this year is to get myself a desk that's about, underneath the desk, it's about that wide. For me to be able to sit on a big wide chair, maybe like a piano chair, one of those big wide piano chairs, and sit cross-legged with my legs underneath the desk. Now, there was a time when I would switch over. I would have everything, all my desk stuff on a regular desk, and then I would move all of this whole thing onto the floor and have all of my, actually onto a short, like a coffee table. And then I would sit up to the coffee table on the floor to do my work. And I found that alternating between regular desk sitting and sitting on the floor was really optimal. Now, I'm not sure if that will still be the case now, but I'm really getting told big time by my body that I need to be sitting, for the most part, when I'm sitting, in a cross-legged position, or like with my heels under my butt like you do on the floor. So that's one of my goals soon. I don't want to lose my little desk, though. I like this little desk, but unfortunately I think it's got to go. I also like my privacy of living in this house by myself, but I believe that the advantages of getting some housemates, helpers, people, what I call them, interns, people that want to come here and learn like massage from me, etc. I think that that is a really important thing for me to do in the future. And I want to tell you guys like how important that is. A long time ago, I didn't know, but I had a strong feeling that someday I would be a part, and maybe even one of the leaders of a really great and incredible community. And I didn't know if it was one that I would join myself, or if it was one that I would start on my own. And now that I've built up some energy with my business and knowledge, and having lived out in the country for like 5 or 6 years now, I feel pretty strongly that I'm going to start one on my own. And with me, everything is really super slow. Everything comes around really slow. And that doesn't matter, I mean, whether it be my diet or people that I'm hanging out with or whatever. There's just a bunch of different things. Spirituality. It's all been a very, very slow inclination of progression. And so I'm not expecting that to be any different than this community. It'll be like, okay, I've met one person, and he's going to come here, and we'll see how it works out. Then maybe we'll add a second. Or maybe one person will come here, and it doesn't work out at all, and he's like, fuck you, and I'm out of here. And then somebody else comes, and hopefully that person works out. But building people in a community is probably the hardest thing. And people in bands will tell you, musical bands will tell you, that that's probably also the hardest thing. And it depends on the person and how easy it is to get along with them. And for me, I would say that out of a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being super easy to get along with, and 10 being really, really difficult to get along with that person, I would say that I'm somewhere in the 8 to 9 region. Yeah. So not very easy to get along with, but not bad. But the thing is that if you're one of my viewers and you feel as though and you think that we have a lot in common, like the 2 people that have recently connected with me, then it's a lot higher of a possibility. Because you know what my demeanor is and what my energy is, etc. And so you have a lot better idea. So yeah, I figured that you liked the paranormal. You might have a crawl space, yeah. I have a basement downstairs, and there is one room in the basement that could potentially be fitted to be livable. Of course, there's electricity down there, and so it can be warm. That's important. Next year, I'm planning on building a mass rocket heater down there, maybe, if I'm planning on staying in this house. Or I might just build one for the experience of building one. So have you guys ever heard of a mass rocket heater? It's a mass because it's a heavy, heavy mass of bricks and sand and cement. And it's big. And it's a rocket heater because it's like a rocket heater that utilizes a barrel to hold the heat initially in it. In fact, actually, it's got 2, I believe, 2 barrels. One big one and one small one. No, it's just got one big one. And then it has an ignition chamber, and then it has about a 12-foot, roughly 12-foot pipe that goes along the floor before it goes up and out the chimney. And that's the key. See, it heats this big barrel, and then it heats this big 12-foot long pipe that's enclosed in all this sand and cement. And that heats up that whole mass, which is why it's called a rocket mass heater. And before all of that heat goes out the chimney, it gets absorbed into that mass and then into the house. That's what's really cool about it. The other thing that's really cool about it is that it burns so hot that there's a lot less fumes coming out of the chimney. Okay, so this is a major MP. My name is Brett. Now I have a cousin named Brad, but my name is not Brad, it's Brett. So it's really important that we learn to utilize the resources better. And the burning of wood is one of those things that's been horribly utilized in the past and still is. Whenever you've got a wood-burning stove and the pipe just goes straight up and out the roof, if you were to go up on the roof and put your hand over that, it would probably burn it. Imagine how much heat is being lost, how inefficient. They have efficiency ratings for heaters. And a lot of most of those wood-burning stoves, even new ones, are losing so much heat right out the flume and into the atmosphere. And so a lot of things need to be done slower and more logically. You see, it takes time to build. Takes most of the YouTubers that I've watched their videos on YouTube, it took them at least a week, if not 2 weeks, to build a mass rocket heater. And so it takes a lot of time, and most people just don't have time. They don't have the time to do things the right way, like build a house that's not going to burn to the ground because it's made out of the right materials. So yeah, there's just a bunch of things that I wanted to talk about tonight. I'm sure there's a hell of a lot more. But yeah, check it out, Shell. Rocket mass heater or mass rocket heater. There's also a really good book that's recommended on Amazon for how to build those. You've got to build it. It wouldn't work for a trailer. I believe you're still in a trailer, right, Shell? You can't put them in a trailer because they have to be on the ground. Like I cannot put one here on the first floor because it has to be on the ground. Unless you've got like a majorly strong floor, I mean, I wouldn't do it because these things weigh like, I don't know, probably. Remember water beds and how heavy they were? Is anybody old enough to remember water beds? They were really, really heavy. And back in the day, sometimes people would have not only a leak problem where the water would come out of the water bed and go all over the place, but sometimes the floor would give away, and like because these things were so heavy. And a rocket mass heater is also really super heavy, and you couldn't put it in a trailer. I couldn't put it in this cabin, but I could put it in the basement because that's where the ground is. It's just cement down there. And also the we don't need to run a pipe out through this thing because there's already a chimney. We already have a chimney, and we can run the pipe straight into the chimney and straight up to the roof. The thing with the rocket mass heaters are that in the morning, what you do is you get up early and you go and you keep feeding them. And you have to feed them every like 15 minutes for hours. But after they've built up enough heat in them, they'll keep the house warm all day long, depending on how cold it is outside. But they utilize the heat so much more efficiently, and they save the heat so much more efficiently than any other kind of a heater. And I believe that they've made them so that they can be a lot longer too. And you always, that 12-foot suction that goes out and then it comes back in before it goes up to the chimney, they always make those into like a sitting bench so that you can go and sit on this warm, very warm bench. And that's always like, they'll always say that that's their favorite place in the house to go. So I've been thinking about making the basement a lot more habitable down there and a place where I can have this mass rocket heater. So potentially that can be another place for a person that's staying here to live. Right now it's not very livable down there, so it would need a lot of work. I do. I had one. You had a mass rocket stove, Shell? Brett, do you know anything about compost toilets? Yeah, compost toilets cost a lot of money. If you go on Amazon and or eBay and you put composting toilets, they're $1,000, and they're really fancy, but it's not what you really need. All you really need is some sawdust, and you have to you have to kind of you can make a simple composting toilet as well, where it separates the pee from the poo, because that's what the main thing that a composting toilet does. The fancy ones also have a thing that meshes it all together in there, and you just turn a crank handle. But for the most part, the most important part that a composting toilet does is it keeps the poo separate from the pee. And in the poo part of the container, it's got sawdust. And in the pee part, you just put water, and if you want, you can add some vinegar. And that keeps it from stinking, because if you pee in sawdust, it will smell. But if you keep the poo and the pee separate, then you won't have any of the smell problem. And so that's kind of the main thing with that. Anyways, it's 10 after 9 here. I hope that y'all are having a good year so far. I'm doing okay. I don't expect to make a lot of sales, but I have to make a certain amount of sales to be able to get through this difficult time of the year. There's a couple of difficult times of the year. Like, for instance, right around tax time is tough. right before and after tax time, when everyone's paid the government all of their money to police the world. And also right after New Year's, right now is probably the worst time for the next, say, week or so, week or two. So if anybody has extra money out there and they'd like to buy a Mellet Hall pillow, if you really appreciate my videos and you'd like to not give me some kind of a charity, because like when you buy my products, they're totally worth every penny. But if you'd like to patronize my channel, brettsnaturalhealth.com, I would really appreciate it. Now, it's not like I expect everyone to, because I know that most of my viewers don't have very much money at all. That's the deal. Because when I come on here and I say, hey, you know, all these people that want to buy all this excess shit that they don't really need, it's all a bunch of materialism and extravagancy, those people really suck. Then I just lost those viewers. And you know, if those people aren't honest with themselves, if they're not the kinds of people that care about things that really matter in this world, then guess what? They just unsubscribed. But I'm not here to appease people. Look like I'm here? Do I sound like I'm here to appease people? The rich? There's a song I was watching the other day called Eat the Rich. And I'm not suggesting that you eat the rich. I'm just suggesting that maybe we at least ignore them if their priorities are not in order. Now someday there'll be some really angry people at the rich. And when the world gets to a point of where people don't have their basic necessities, a whole lot of people don't have their basics, but a whole lot of other people have the extravagancies, and they're going down the road in their whatever car that's extravagant, it's most likely that those cars are going to get hit by 20-pound boulders when they're driving underneath the overpass. Or they're going to get riddled with bullets and stuff, you know. I mean, that's what's going to happen. And like I said, I'm not telling you that I'm going to do that, or that I'm not suggesting that anybody do anything like that. I'm just telling you that it's pretty easy to foresee the future for how, when people are not happy, they do things. They do violent things. They say violent things. And that's how it is. But the more advanced people can keep their cool and not do violent things. But there will get to a point. There always gets to a point where people are like, well, that's it. They're not listening to us verbally, and so we're going to have to actually do something physically. And that's kind of where they're at in Hong Kong right now. And so those are my thoughts about all these things. And I personally think, now somebody the other day that unfriended me on Facebook because they didn't agree that it was right to assassinate this Soleimani, whatever his name is, this general. And for me, I'm like, well, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't really bother me at all. Even though a lot of people revere, like, think about this. People in Iraq, a lot of people love this person that was somebody that intentionally targeted innocent people, you know? And so that kind of shows you where the mindset is there. They're really pissed off. And I'm not saying that they don't have a right to be pissed off to a degree, because that's kind of how America is. It goes in, it sees an opportunity to get something, and then it goes for it. And so, I don't know. I kind of just let things, I'm kind of just here to a point of where, getting to a point of where I'm willing to allow the chips to fall where they may, and realizing that everything happens for a reason. Do you know what I mean? But anyways, When I was young, people could disagree and be friends no more. That's not true. Everyone's different. We're just in a place where there's a lot of polarity. And for me personally, I always ask people, and you know this, most of you know this, I always ask anyone that friends me on Facebook if they're a Trump supporter. Because for me, especially at this point, if a person is still a Trump supporter, then what that means is that they're supporting his economic pros, his economic characteristics, things that he's done for the economy that has helped our country to protect itself and our economy to stay relatively strong. I think it's very superficial. I think that it could go downhill really quickly, especially with the rate that it's risen, in the last several years since he's been president. But I think that the optimism is there, and that those people that are willing to accept that over his poor character, those are not the kind of people that would be a good friend with me. If you're somebody that's just willing to accept his poor character because the economy is doing good, like I don't look highly. I don't speak highly of those people, and nor do I want them to be my Facebook friend, nor do I want them to be a personal friend. And that doesn't mean that I really hate those people. It just means that I think poorly of them. I don't have a high opinion of them. So, how long ago the last time you ate fast food? The early 90s. The early 90s. So, nearing 30 years. It's pretty good, huh? And, here, I'll tell you something. I'll show you something interesting. Maybe interesting to you. Oh, yeah. So, here. Okay. So, I was thinking about doing a video. And then I realized, it's just not worth it to go and try and find some random person to shoot the video for me. But I downloaded from the McDonald's site the ingredients list to a bunch of their different products. So what's in an Egg McMuffin, you guys? What's in an Egg McMuffin? Enriched wheat flour. What does enriched mean? That means that it's had added synthetic vitamins to it. Probably synthetic vitamins to it. Enriched wheat flour, the first thing that I tell you not to consume is wheat and dairy. So the second ingredient is water. There's the second ingredient in an Egg McMuffin is water. Yeast, cornmeal, and corn flour. Well, those are okay. I mean, depending on the yeast is probably not a good quality yeast. It's probably some mass-produced thing. But then you've got vegetable oil, and it's either canola and or soy oil. And canola oil is not something I consume. And I don't believe that I know I don't consume soy oil either, because most soy is all GMO, genetically modified, and it's probably, neither of those are probably unrefined. In fact, I know they're not. They're refined oils, and I don't do any refined oils. Salt, what kind of salt do they put in an Egg McMuffin? Salt that's probably from the Great Salt Lake, which is where I'm from the Morton Salt Company, which is a highly processed and demineralized salt. Sugar is the next ingredient, and I don't have to say anything about that, and may contain any or all of the following in varying proportions: monoglycerides, salt, diacetylated tartaric acid esters of mono and triglycerides. I'm going to try and say that one more time. Diacetylated tartaric acid esters of mono diglycerides. That was a mouthful, huh? And this is the ingredients of an egg McMuffin. And we haven't even said egg yet. We're up to most of the ingredients already, but we've not said egg yet. Monocalcium phosphate, ascorbic acid, enzymes, cultured wheat flour, citric acid, calcium citrate, cornstarch, wheat gluten. Oh, it's got wheat gluten in it. Not only does it have enriched wheat flour, but they've also added pure wheat gluten to it. Fumaric acid, malted barley flour, toasted in the same toaster that also prepares other bun containing butter and egg. May contain milk and egg. Oh wait, no wait. Okay, so all of that was just what's in the muffin. That's not the whole egg McMuffin. That was just what's in the muffin. Now I'll tell you what's in the egg. Egg, Canada grade A large. Okay, and you know where those are all from, right? Caged chickens. Those are all from mass-produced caged chickens. Cooked on a grill and lightly seasoned with clarified butter, unsalted butter. Okay, and each one says what it contains below it, because they're trying to tell you that that what that ingredient is a major allergen. So they're either required by law to tell you, I believe they are required by law to tell you if it contains a major allergen. So the first thing, the English muffin contains wheat and barley. Wheat and barley both have gluten in them. That's why they're major allergens. The next thing, the egg contains milk and egg. Both those are major allergens. Right, it's got butter, which is a dairy product. The next thing is Canadian bacon. And what's in the Canadian bacon is pork, water, sugar, salt, sodium lactate, sodium phosphate, natural flavor, a vegetable source, and sodium diacetate, sodium nitrate, and smoke. The last ingredient is smoke. The cheese, the processed cheese slice, here's what that contains. And if you could just join us, this is what's in and all the things that are in an egg McMuffin from McDonald's. The cheese has cheese, which is milk, modified milk ingredients, bacterial culture, enzyme, and lipase. Modified milk ingredients. Okay, so we're not sure exactly what modified milk ingredients are, but those are in there. Water, sodium citrate and or sodium phosphate. Salt, potassium sorbate, citric acid, soy lecithin, and color. Annatto. I'm not sure what that is. And the cheese contains soy and milk. Once again, the reason they tell you that is because those are high allergen foods. And the butter contains pasteurized cream, milk, salt, and may contain color, plant source. So they might add a color to the butter to make it yellower. So it contains milk. So there you go. Now you know what's in an egg McMuffin. I got a bunch of different ones here, and I'll save those for another time. So thanks everybody for joining me, and once again, go to brettsnaturalhealth.com, and if there's somebody out there that thinks that they might be interested in starting a community with me and doing all the things, hanging up laundry, cooking, if everybody will have like a different job for the day. And you may be the cook for the day on Mondays. And that's what you do. You cook for the whole group, which will be just me and you. No, it'll be hopefully hundreds of people in our community someday. And you'll be like slaving over the stove all day, cooking for crap loads of people. Just kidding. But you know what I mean. When a person does things like you focus on just doing that the whole day, there are things that have to be done every single day, like cooking, for instance. Everyone needs food for the most part every day. And so there's like a designated person that's cooking for the group for the day. That's typically how it does with a community, and that's how it works the best. Because whenever you focus on, like for instance, whenever I make soother tools, I now make these in a manner that's like a production. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll stand here at the bench and I'll cut out sandpapers. And I cut them in half first, and then I fold them in quarters. Some of them I cut them in half, or cut them in quarters, and then I fold them in half from there. And then I have to tape them all together, and I make a whole bunch of sandpapers, so that when I go out and I start putting these all together, I can just go. See the stem there? That's a 3-inch stem. I'll cut a crap load, whatever number of stems that I need, and all I'll do is stems for 15 minutes. 3-inch stems, 3-inch stems, 3-inch stems, 3-inch stems. And so that's how it works, that you're able to produce enough of these to be able to make a profit. And it works the same with a community. You know, each person needs to do the things. And the more people that you have with all different, here's the goal. You want to get a community with a people with a wide variety of talents. So you don't want like, oh, everybody in their gourd is a computer programmer. One of the people that's interested in coming here, both of them have computer abilities. And that's great. But I don't want to just keep getting more and more people with computer abilities. See, the thing with our society is that if you're a computer programmer and you're really good and you work for the right company, you can make a lot of money. And people consider that to be still really valuable. But in a community, it's a different deal. It's kind of a different deal because every job in a real, like a natural community is really valuable. And think about it. If you go out in society and you're a cook, you can get a job for 10 or 15 bucks or as a line cook. That's what I did when I was young. And it's just not very valuable. But if you're living in community and you've got somebody that can really cook good health food, how valuable is that? See, the true value of what a person does when you live naturally is the true value. And everyone appreciates it. And it's not just like, oh, well, society has deemed that this particular occupation, like a doctor or a real estate agent, those people are going to make a whole lot more money than everybody else because it's so much more valuable. The truth of the matter is that Donald Trump can afford and has been able to afford to have somebody else raise natural chickens just like the way I'm doing. He could afford to have somebody that's a total health nut making him fruit smoothies every day. Imagine he could afford to get a massage every single day. But here's the kicker. A whole lot of those things take time, and they take effort, and they take desire, and they take knowledge. A whole lot of those things. So even somebody that's filthy, filthy, filthy effing rich that can afford to have somebody else pull all the strings for them to be able to get those health things, they don't do it. Why? Because they don't have a desire, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the respect, they don't have the will. They don't have those things. So guess what? Look at Donald Trump's face. It's full of fat. It's full of French fries and hydrogenated oil fats and steak. He can afford to eat steak as much as he wants to, and as much cheese as he wants. So all those rich people, don't be so jealous. Don't be jealous of those people when they're driving by in their Mercedes Benz, because it's most likely that they're going to be driving down the road, and pretty soon they're going to have a heart attack or a stroke, or they're going to get diabetes or something. And and you don't have to be filthy rich to be really, really healthy and happy. And I am going to show you guys. I am going to show you guys how good it can be. But I can't do it myself. That's the thing that I've always known. God knows me and my ego and my whatever. My enjoying my own space and my alone time, etc. I would like it to be that I can do everything. I can wear every hat. I can be the cook. I can be the dog walker. I can be the laundry hanger upper and the Airbnb trailer cleaner. I can do all of the shit that I do and be happy and healthy. But guess what? I can't, because I'm wearing the out of myself. I am wearing myself out so bad by trying to wear all the hats that it's not even funny. Honey. So, things have got to change, and I hope that you guys are doing well. I hope that you guys are, that's the first thing. That's the first thing. You have to just, even if you're, no matter what, that's what they tell you in AA meetings. I grew up an alcoholic. I've been to many an AA meeting. Not that I'm an alcoholic, but I went to many an Al-Anon meeting. And the first thing that they'll tell you is that to make a change, you have to end the problem. That's number one, baby. First, you have to, I guess if you want to consider it a thing, you have to fall hard. See, and this is the same. I thought I was going to end this video. This is the same with the world. Okay. The world right now is, in many places, in many ways, is like a drunk hitting rock bottom. In Australia right now with those fires, it's like a drunk hitting rock bottom. And they're dragging themselves through the gutter, or they just got pulled over by a cop and they're sitting in jail wondering how they're going to make bail, or God knows how many things that people have to get to the point of absolute total hell before they're willing to admit that they have a problem. And some people in this world are admitting that we have a climate problem, or that we have smog problems, or we have water problems. In Flint, Michigan, they have come to the point of where they have admitted that they had a water problem. Now, what are they going to do? But the question is, have other communities decided that, oh, we need to admit that we're having a problem? In North Carolina right now, they're admitting now, the what's it called? The electric company is admitting that they have a problem, because now they have to move crap loads of coal ash that's leaking into the ground. In a couple of different places, they're being forced to move coal ash to a different location. And this is expensive stuff, y'all. This is expensive things that they have to do. And so for me, what we really need to do is have the whole grid powered by solar and wind. The whole grid is powered continuously by millions of solar panels and wind turbines, and not coal burning plants. And in order to do that, you have to have a lot of people assembling and installing all of that. And I can give you lots and lots of ways. Lots and lots of ways. How many people are out there? Think of how many people are out there with some kind of a government job that we don't necessarily need. Like a lot of military people could be out there doing that. Just that. A lot of immigrants could be doing that. They want to be American citizens. Well, they can work for America for 5 years, say, installing solar panels and wind turbines and living on an organic farm out in the boonies. And after 5 years, they get to be full-on American citizens. And they would much rather, believe me, they would much rather be paying their dues to become an American citizen like that versus living in some kind of a hell in Guatemala where they're being threatened by the cartels or whatever. So these are my ideas, and some of you disagree with them. Some of you see the logic in them. I just put two and two together, and I hook it up. You need this, they need that. They need this, they need that. Let's do this. Put it all together. There's always going to be people that are like pissed off at me for saying that for their own personal reasons or whatever, but that's just what I think. That's what I feel. That's what I think. And that's, anyways. I want to thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you are well.